all this to say, this is why I have regret, because Heidi always knew about this person, and I mean, she knows everything about my past, and knew that when we were very casual and starting out and just dating, that if this person came back, it was already talked about between us that I would be going back to this person for closure. That was a known thing. And instead of me just going and getting the closure, when Heidi, said, contact her, talk to her, have you text her, like, please don't, not on my behalf, like, why aren't you in contact her? She would encourage it. She, during COVID, said, reach out to her. And I did um, reach out once during COVID when I knew, I think I've told you before, but when I knew a coworker had passed away due to COVID, and I had read about it in the news, and I was concerned. And so I did reach out. The problem was that I got very stubborn because of pain from my past with my ex, that when she, thanked me for reaching out, thanked me for checking on her, said it'd been hard, um, that, she had to make all these changes with her career because of COVID as well. And actually, she didn't offer that up. That's not even true. She just thanked me and then said she'd been thinking about me because of New York and how hard it'd been hit by COVID. And I wrote back, "Oh, thank you. I'm actually not in New York. I'm actually in LA." Anticipating, or hoping, I guess, that she would ask more questions or keep a conversation going or say, "Oh, what's LA like?" or "Why are you in LA?" or "Where are you living?" or anything. And or talk about what she's going through. Say, but instead it was when she shut down, it's like pulling teeth. And so then I get no questions asked of myself, which is not like her. She is someone that's very involved in your life, but when she's in that mode, there's zero questions. There's zero checking on me. There's zero asking anything. She'll think about me all the time, but not ask. And so I got no questions. And so I was like, fine, you don't want to know the answer? I'm not going to tell you. You could have asked. And I asked about her and had to kind of push, and then finally got, that there'd been a career change because of COVID. And then I went to ask another question. It was very much like, I'm busy, I can't talk about this right now, but we'll talk about it again soon. Kind of checks in the mail. And of course, she never came back to it to talk about it. And then Heidi and I asked a question basically saying, that I was considering I really loved her dog a lot, and missed it. And Heidi and I had talked about maybe wanting to get the same kind of dog. So I was asking where she got that dog, asking information about it. And she said, I'll get you the information. Never got me the information. Now she has. But back then, never. There was no ever responding. It was very much clear I was being avoided. And that triggered me and got me very upset because it was just what I was used to. And she obviously was not ready. And so, because of that, when time went on and Heidi encouraged me to talk with her and go and date, I mean, Heidi would tell me, go to New York for 2 months and date. Go, go, start, like, we were not exclusive, and I was kind of still in that figuring out stage, and Heidi was very supportive of it and was like, go do this. And I didn't. I mean, I did, but I never contacted my ex, and that was the time to. I could have, when I was trying to date. And as I said, I went back to New York, and I wouldn't stay 2 months because I missed Heidi too much. And I went on a date and talked about Heidi and the kids so much that they were like, okay, so we're friends? Like, why are you out here? And then, saw an ex, and she was like, oh my gosh, like, you're about to be wifed up. Like, it was very clear to everyone that that I was soon to be in something serious. And so I tried it out, had my connections, kind of tied off some loose ends, and then that was the time. I did reach out to exes. I mean, that was the time. And there was never even a thought to reach out to her because I was so stubborn about the fact that someday, I was like, someday she will finally want to be true to herself and she will reach out to me and it will be too late. And it was almost like I needed her to have to face that. I never even considered how painful that would be for me or how that would be a risk for me and like hard for Heidi. Like all I thought was if I reach out to her right now and say, "Hey, I just want to check in on you, kind of want to let you know where I'm at. Um, I'm, you know, not exclusive, but I am dating someone and I do kind of see a future with that. And if there's ever a time that you and I like, if that means something to you and you need to do something about that, like this is your shot." Um, by the time that came around, it was far enough after COVID and or after lockdown, um, and when we were traveling again, and after that time that she didn't check on me, that from now having our conversation, she was already thinking about me and almost contacting me and kind of putting it off and kind of scared of would she find them with someone? Would it be too late? That we would have then been able to go and have that closure um, at the right, without it being when I'm exclusive with Heidi fully, encouraging it with us, me dating, us, still being casual. And I was stubborn. I, at the time, wanted her to have that pain of it being too late. I didn't want to help her out in that area because I was mad. I was angry. And I regret that because that would have been the appropriate time to take care of it. And who knows how that would have looked. I I think had I told her when we first talked during COVID that I was just locked down with, an old friend or someone that I had kind of was casually dating and her 3 kids, that she would have then, knowing her, started hitting me up a lot more, but not really being honest with her feelings, but then wanting to kind of stay top of mind. That's kind of how she did things when she would find out I was dating someone, before she was ready to really, kind of just keep me on the hook, right? And but not ready to completely jump in type thing. So that would not have been very helpful, but by the time that I was in New York and should have reached out to her, I think that it would have been the time to get the closure and we could have had that. And that, I think, is what is so hard for me about this because I don't want to do this now. I I want it to have already been done. And I think it's just hard for me knowing I have to go forward in my life with the regret that I didn't do that and that I just have to sit with that and know that I don't get to ever see what that was like when she was in a different place, when she was, because I didn't reach out when I could have. I got stubborn, and that was a problem with her and I, that we would both get stubborn with each other and regret it later. And so I have to live with that, just like she has to live with that she didn't reach out during that time when she was wanting to and didn't, you know, go to counseling sooner and didn't, um, accept her true self and live in her truth and contact me, you know, so many times when she almost did, when it would have been fine to contact me and would have been the appropriate time. And so I think that is what has been kind of hard because I'm someone that does struggle with regret. I don't struggle with guilt. I don't struggle with anxiety. A lot of the things that people struggle with, mine is its own kind of hell, and it's regret. And so I think that has been a lot of the processing. Like, I have to live with that because I'm not the same person now that I was then, and I have to really, like, think about the timing of what this is and where my life is and what I have, and, acknowledging that, and not just like being flippant, like, well, I have permission and this is, this will be fine. Like, it's not a big deal. And, you know, yeah. So, all that to say, um, I call her the therapist. She's a psychologist that lived with me and has always kind of been this amazing, like, she just really knows me and has been a close, close friend since then. And older and wise, and she has kind of been my sounding board. And she lived with me during one of these iterations of my heartbreak with this ex, and the in between and the getting back together and that. So she knows all the details, and in fact was one of the reasons that I really looked into realizing that I attract. In fact, she is the reason. She point blank told me, you have a fear of abandonment. And I was like, why? What do you mean? And she says, you attract fear of commitment. And I was like, why would I attract fear of commitment when I want a commitment? I want a relationship. Why? At the time I was really looking for that. I was really seeking, in fact, was turning away people when that was not where they were at. So I was like, why would you say that? And I said, and why would I have a fear of abandonment? Like, I've never been abandoned. And she said, didn't you lose both of your parents? And I was like, well, yes. And she said, do you find yourself, ever worrying that someone in your life is going to die? And I was like, oh, all the time. And I thought for a second, and I was like, okay, so one of my exes was a flight attendant, and if we had a plan to talk and we were long distance and I didn't hear from her when we were supposed to, I would start checking Google with her airline to see if the plane went down, because I would start panicking that, oh my gosh, like, the planes went down. Like, I would literally look at Google to see if, there was a plane crash. I mean, you think obviously with something that big, I would already know a plane had crashed. That would be a big deal. But I would do that and would really have a hard time if I wouldn't hear from someone. Not like right, I don't mean if they're like a little bit late, but I mean if it'd been like a significant amount of hours or days, or, I would start to panic quite a bit. Or like if someone, goes to the store and, it's supposed to be, it takes like a really long time, all of a sudden it's like, oh, what if they're in a car wreck? That kind of thing used to be a struggle for me, and at that time was a struggle for me. And so I told her that, and she says, yeah, because you have fear of abandonment, because you've lost both your parents, and you worry that people are going to die. And I'm like, yeah, because they do. Like, at a young age, I'd lost like 9 people in my life that are very close to me, and obviously both your parents. And I was like, this isn't that people could die. People do die. And so, yes, but I never thought that was affecting my dating life. And so I said, but why would that make me, pull in? Because I agreed. I said, she's like, do you feel that it's just her, or there are other people in your past that have fear of commitment issues? So I thought about it, and I went, oh, yeah, that ex, yep, and that ex, and oh. Like, I at the time did not realize, but I started going back through my exes. And in fact, since I'm friends with a lot of them, I contacted them, and I would say, that I had kind of heard this, and start saying some of the signs. And they would go, oh, I have that. Oh, that's me. Oh, I struggle with that. oh, I have fear of commitment. Oh my gosh, that's totally me. I mean, like every single one of them was like, and I didn't even realize that they had this. In fact, it took me going on a couple dates I went on, asked me why one of my exes and I broke up, a different ex. And so I was just telling them, oh, this is why my last relationship ended, and kind of saying some things that my ex had said. And one of the things that my ex had said to me, because I'm someone that really likes to be there for someone that I love and kind of get in the thick of it, and some, one of Heidi's favorite parts about me, but I had an ex that wasn't something she liked about me. She wants to go through everything alone, even if we were in a committed relationship. And she's like, I don't want to talk to you about it until I'm through it. And I was like, how do you do life that way? You were engaged in the past. Like, you lived with someone. How would you have this kind of life with them? And she's like, well, we just wouldn't speak during those times. Like, we would maybe say some polite things if we pass each other in the house. But she's like, maybe that's why, maybe I need therapy. I don't know. Maybe that's why I'm not married. But that when I was engaged and we lived together, we just, until I was through it, it was just known. She goes, and my friends know that's how I am. So they just respect it and they just leave me alone, and I will just get check-ins from friends. Are you alive? Because sometimes it'll go on for weeks and they'll worry that I'm dead. And I was like, what? And I could not, it was just so opposite of me. And she said, it's like being in a gilded cage. Like, she's like, when I'm in it, it's not just that I don't want to reach out to someone. I will literally tell someone, I will text them or call them, and I physically cannot during that time. I physically can't. And she's like, and I don't feel lonely, but I know that people are worried about me and that it bothers them, and I can't even bring myself to reach out to say, like, I'm okay. And I was really blown away by this. Like, it was just not something I'd ever encountered. And it caused problems for us, and I didn't probably handle it well at all, and just was like, I'm miserable in that. Like, that's just not who I am. Like, I want to be there for you, and I'm very loyal, and I don't cheat, and so I'm not out looking at apps and trying to date while you go through these things. But then I just feel lonely because I can't be there for you. I can't see you. I don't know. And it wouldn't be like just big emergencies. Like, if there was a bad day at work, this would happen. So I never knew. I mean, there's going to be bad days at work. So I never knew when this would happen, where all of a sudden I had to go through, like, she's in hiding, and I had to, now I got to shut down. And so it would just be very lonely for me. And so when I went on a date after we broke up, and they said, oh, why did your last relationship end? And so I told this story. And later, after the date, I became friends with this person, and she said, when we were on our date, you told me this story, and I didn't have the heart to tell you that that's exactly how I am. And I've never heard someone put it in the words where I'm like, oh my gosh, she's describing me. And I was like, I thought this was like this shocking thing that would shock anyone if they'd heard it, hear me say it. And yet she was like, resonated with it. And I was blown away by this. So she really wanted to pursue me. And I liked her, but because of that, I was like, ooh, red flag. And so I was like, we should be friends. And so I went on another date, and, this is like a week later. And she, same thing, why'd your last relationship end? So I tell the same story. And she said, I wouldn't, in fact, I think my ex said I feel like it's being locked in I don't know if she said cage or room, but this girl is the one that said, no, I wouldn't call it that. I would call it being locked in a gilded cage. And I was like, what? And she goes, yeah, you're describing me. Hate to tell you. We were still at dinner when she told me. And I was like, okay. So I had to go home and be like, there is one common denominator in these people that are saying the exact same words out of their mouth. Words that my ex said that I was shocked to ever hear. I'm like, okay, I am the only common denominator. These people do not know each other. what is it about me that this is what it's attracting? Because this is not what I want to attract.